Told us legends die young, but the Toyota Supra didn't get the memo. While Ferraris were busy setting wallets on fire and Lamborghinis were being bought by guys compensating for something, Toyota built a car so deadly it turned cheap into a weapon. The Mark IV wasn't just a car, it was a rolling middle finger to everything with an exotic badge. Twin turbos, a 6-speed manual, and an engine so overbuilt it laughs at nuclear power plants. And just when the world thought it was gone for good, Toyota dragged it out of the grave with the A90, partnering with BMW because what's scarier than German engineering with Japanese reliability? This isn't just a car story. It's the saga of how a so-called budget Toyota became the boogeyman of supercars. Cheap is about to get terrifying. Now, while Western brands were busy flexing their egos with overpriced sports cars that cost more than a house and break down faster than your last relationship, Japan had a different idea. They thought, why not build something fast, reliable, and actually affordable? And boom, the Toyota Supra was born. Back in 1978, it rolled out as a bigger, meaner spin-off of the Celica, ditching the 4-cylinder for a smooth 6-cylinder that said, yeah, I may not be Italian, but I will still ruin Ferraris at the stoplight. Over the years, the Supra went from a comfy Grand Tour to a flat-out legend. It became the poster car of the 90s, the star of drag strips, and the unofficial mascot of Fast and Furious. Toyota stretched its bones, stuffed in a 2.6-liter inline-6, and gave drivers a whole 110 horsepower. Sure, that only got you from 0 to 60 in about 11 seconds, but hey, in the late 70s that was enough to impress your date and maybe even scare your dog. It came loaded with fancy stuff like air conditioning, leather seats, and even cruise control, the first car in America to have it. Imagine flexing on your neighbors because your car could literally drive itself for 5 minutes. Underneath, Toyota threw away the old live axle and fitted independent rear suspension with semi-trailing arms. Result, in 1984 it beat a Ferrari, a Lotus, and 2 Porsches in a best-handling import test. Somewhere, a red sports car cried into its cappuccino. Our came from a twin-cam 2.8-liter inline-6 that started at 145 horsepower and about 155 pound-feet, later rising to 161 horsepower and 169 pound-feet. Not a firework, but smooth, durable, and ready to work every day without demanding a gold-plated mechanic. Want plush? The luxury L-Type brought automatic climate control, a 5-speaker stereo, a sunroof, and a digital dash. Want stance and grip? The Performance Type added the sport looks and feel. R & Driver put the second generation on its 10 best list in 1983 and 1984, and a long-term 1983 car won hearts by doing the dull stuff and the fun stuff without drama. That is the whole point. While supercars chased lap times and therapy bills, this Supra delivered real handling, real comfort, and real reliability. When production ended in 1985, Celica went front-wheel drive, Supra stayed rear-wheel drive, and the legend moved on. Cheap Toyota Supra that shames supercars, this is where that attitude learned to grin. Right, let us talk about the third-generation Supra, also known as the point in history where Toyota said, enough is enough, Celica, you go play with the front-wheel drive crowd, we are building something serious. By 1986, Supra was finally standing on its own rear-wheel drive with a big 6-cylinder engine under the hood. No more borrowing the Celica's lunch money. Launch, you got a naturally aspirated 3-liter straight-six pushing out 200 horsepower and 196 pound-feet of torque. Respectable, but then 1987 rolled around and Toyota brought the turbo version. Suddenly it had 230 horsepower and 246 pound-feet, and suddenly your neighbor's Corvette started sweating like it had just checked its medical bills. This turbocharged 7M GTE engine even homologated the Supra into Group A racing, with the limited Turbo A hitting 270 horsepower, making it the fastest production Japanese car of its time. Yes, it was heavier than before, but it had brains to match the brawn. Adjustable suspension, check. Limited slip differential, check. 8-way power seats, because race car drivers need comfort too. Toyota even threw in luxuries like automatic climate control, and for reasons known only to engineers with too much coffee, headlamp washers. Because nothing ruins lap times like a dirty headlight, right? Still, the third-generation Supra earned its respect. It could pull 6-second runs to 60 in turbo trim and look every bit the serious Grand Tourer, bridging the gap between reliable daily driver and track weapon. If you thought Supra was only about domestic bragging rights, the A70 was Toyota's ticket to Europe and world racing. Rally stages, touring cars, you name it, Supra tried it. Sure, it eventually got overshadowed by the rally-bred Celica GT4, but the Supra's job was clear. Show that Toyota could play with the big boys while keeping maintenance bills lower than a Ferrari's tire change. By the late 1980s, this was no longer just a theory. It was parked right in the driveway, waiting to embarrass something twice its price. Fourth-generation Supra, the Mark IV, the one that truly made the world stop and say, hold on, this Toyota can actually embarrass supercars. By 1993, Toyota completely ditched the boxy, 80s vibe and brought out something sleek, curvy, and way too cool to be parked next to your dad's Camry. It was lighter, sharper, and engineered like Toyota knew people would be throwing boost at it until it screamed for mercy. They shaved weight everywhere they could, magnesium steering wheel, plastic fuel tank, even hollow carpet fibers. Yes, Toyota went that far. Engine, you got 2 options. The naturally aspirated 3-liter inline-6 with 220 horsepower and 210 pound-feet of torque, or the real deal, the twin-turbo 3-liter 2JZ GTE making 320 horsepower and 315 pound-feet of torque. Numbers that made Porsches nervous and Corvettes sweat through their fiberglass. The Super Turbo with a 6-speed manual could hit 60 in as little as 4.6 seconds in testing, quicker than many European legends of its time. This was not just a Japanese sports car, it was Japan gate-crashing the supercar party and stealing everyone's dates. Yet in America, sales fell flat. Baby boomers shrugged at it because they were too busy buying SUVs, and Toyota had to discount it heavily just to move units. And Toyota killed it off in 1998 because while buyers abandoned it like a bad Tinder date, the Supra disappeared from US showrooms. The irony, while dealerships could not give them away, 20-something car nuts were scooping up used ones and bolting on enough turbo upgrades to make the quarter-mile a war zone. Suddenly, the Supra was the darling of street racers, drag strips, and drifting events. The legend only grew, especially when Hollywood threw it into the Fast and the Furious and gave us that orange Supra that outran a Ferrari in what is basically the most unrealistic drag race ever filmed. But realism did not matter. By then, the Supra was no longer just a car, it was a cultural weapon. Overseas, especially in the UK, the Supra proved itself as both a long-distance cruiser and a performance monster. It even came in a white pack version where everything paint, trim, wheels was blinding white, like Toyota was auditioning for a role in Miami Vice. Meanwhile, the turbo model launched there with 254 pound-feet of torque, blasting to 60 in just over 6 seconds, and topping out at 153 miles per hour. Not bad for a car that still had Toyota reliability baked into its DNA. At the time the Supra came back swinging in 2019, people were still crying about it not having the real 2JZ. But let's be real, if Toyota had actually put that old engine back, every tuner in the country would have turned their neighborhood into Fast and Furious Home Edition. Instead, Toyota teamed up with BMW, which sounds like the setup to a bad joke. A Toyota and a BMW walk into a bar, who breaks down first? But what rolled out was the A90 Supra, lighter, sharper, and still a menace on the streets. Sure, purists scream betrayal, but the truth is this thing still eats sports cars alive while sipping gas like it's on a diet. And while Ferrari guys are taking out second mortgages and Porsche dudes are selling kidneys, you can scoop up a Supra for pocket change by comparison and still smoke them at a red light. Cheap never looked this disrespectful. And that's how Toyota built a cheap legend that still makes million-dollar exotics sweat through their leather seats. The Supra never needed a trust fund or a badge with a horse. It just showed up, wrecked egos, and left tire marks as signatures. So yeah, before you laugh at the cheap option, remember, the Supra has made a career out of turning supercars into very expensive speed bumps. Drive safe, keep your ride alive, and don't let your wallet decide what car earns your respect. Sometimes the budget killer is the real king.